Welcome, everyone, to Alaska Quarterly Review's 2023 reading series. I am Ronald Spatz, Editor-in-Chief of Alaska Quarterly Review, and this event is being recorded and will be available on the Alaska Quarterly Review YouTube channel. Please feel free to watch any of our prior programs and to share them. Alaska Quarterly Review is committed to presenting these programs without charge and to showcase vibrant and diverse and new and emerging voices and literary conversations with depth, complexity, and humanity. Like all literary magazines, AQR depends on grants, tax-exempt donations, and subscriptions to operate. If so inclined, donations and subscriptions are gratefully welcomed on AQR's website, aqrreview.org. Before we begin, I'd like to make a few important acknowledgements. Alaska Quarterly Review gratefully acknowledges the Anchorage Museum for hosting and the Center for the Narrative and Lyric Arts, Alaska Quarterly Review's 501c3 umbrella organization, which makes this event possible. I also want to make a land acknowledgement. Alaska Quarterly Review recognizes the indigenous land on which all Alaskans live. AQR is located in Anchorage, and Anchorage is Dena'ina homeland. Dena'ina is the language spoken by the traditional, present, and future caretakers of this land. Land acknowledgement opens a space with gratefulness and respect for the contributions, innovations, and contemporary perspective of indigenous peoples and marks our collective movement towards decolonization and equity. Today's featured poet is Alaska Quarterly Review contributing editor Olena Kalytiak Davis, whose fourth poetry collection, Late Summer Ode, has recently been released from Copper Canyon Press. Copper Canyon praises Davis as a conductor of sound and meaning precise to the syllable, a commanding talent in contemporary poetry. What makes Davis's work exciting, wrote Dan Chiasson in The New Yorker, is the feeling it conveys of being full famished full, an emotional state with aesthetic ramifications. It sends us ricocheting from line to line and poem to poem, looking for sustenance. A first-generation Ukrainian-American, Olena was born and raised in Detroit and educated at Wayne State University and University of Michigan Law School and Vermont College. Her first book, And Her Soul Out of Nothing, received the Brittingham Prize. Her other collections include On the Kitchen Table, From Which Everything Has Been Hastily Removed, and The Poem She Didn't Write and Other Poems. Among Davis's heroes honors are Rona Jaffe Award, a Pushcart Prize, a Rasmuson Individual Fellowship Award, a fellowship from the John Simon Guggenheim Foundation. Her poetry has been included in the Best American Erotic Poems from 1800 to the present, the Loaf Anthology of New American Poets, and in several editions of the Best American Poetry anthologies, including work first published in Alaska Quarterly Review. In his New York Times book review of Late Summer Ode, Jeff Gordinier wrote, Davis keeps luring the reader back for a shot of her unmistakable vital flow. The energy of her work hasn't waned. Out of the raw materials of a messy, overripe life, there is still juice to be extracted, or, as Davis puts it, still time to make something of what is, then of what is left. Olena Kalytiak Davis, who says, poetry is impossible, but it is not difficult. So now to begin, I turn it over to Olena.
American landscape with clouds and a zoo. You can be walking along a beach of a quaint Northwestern coastal town, and on the one hand, the great Pacific Ocean, held placid, restless in the sound when it comes over, like those immense woolen gray clouds, layer upon layer, that pour from their Pacific composure, suddenly troubled, moving, troubling, roaring easterly overhead for the inland. America is in trouble, and you're too fucked up to even understand. Buy it. Is America fucked up because it understands itself only too well, as you do you? Every time your girlfriend chucks you a coy smile, you're beside yourself like a sailboat. And every time you think happiness is just like this, forever you're fooled like a kid. America, I'm glad I'm hardly you. I've got myself to think about. In my zone is a fairly large zoo, plenty of room to walk around, shade, and the shade that is increasingly, bitterly called shadow. Of animals, there are but two, arranged in unpredictable cadence and sequence. One is the renowned leopard of the snow, lazy, humorous, speckled pepper a bit, like the wren that flies from shadow to cage, to shade, to shadow. When I mistakenly awaken at night, I dread both the darkness and the inevitable, increasingly querulous birdsong of the inevitable, increasingly wide stun of light. Everything is too brief, eternal, stable, unpredictable. Everything always says, I'm all there is forever, friend. Just see it my way. And I do. So that is actually not a poem by me, but it's taped into my book and it goes with my cloud cover. It's a poem by John Anderson from the Milky Way. And I guess it's an experiment in, I don't know, if I heard myself read that poem, I might think I wrote that poem. And also an experiment in content creation and maybe the lack of necessity for that. There's so much already out there that resonates. And I think this was written maybe in the early 80s. That sounds like it could have been written today. So anyway, that is taped into my book. Again, no audience, so no reaction, but I guess I'll never know what you think. So the reason that came up, I have a very, very, very troubled relationship with both poetry and poetry readings, performance. It's all highly, highly troubling. And I think because it's both so somehow essential and inconsequential at the same time. I think the struggle is to attend to everything that's going on. And I guess that's what I'm trying to do now. But what can I say? I'm here alone, except for with my stack of books. And I guess when I was trying to figure out what to do today, on YouTube, something came up that was helpful, and it was Eileen Miles's little chat for the Louisiana channel. I know she's done several of them, but this one was called Poetry as Performance. And I love Eileen. Not Me is almost always in my bathroom, which is a very honorable place for it to be. And she talks about, and maybe the highest good is just playing your own poems. Like you know, say someone that played the piano or played an instrument, for someone out there to hear how they actually go. So, and she says other things too that are really smart. And other than performance, she talks about, and I think I'm getting to that place too. I talk about dictation, about taking dictation at this point in my poetry practice. And again, go to YouTube, watch it, Louisiana Channel, Eileen Miles, Poetry as Performance, about actually picking up something that is not just yours. I think John Anderson did it. I think Eileen does it. I think anyone that is in this for something other than this, which is part of it, it's a competitive sport and a performative sport, taps into, and I think that is the best part of it. It's a ticket to being alive and younger than you are. So anyway, on that note, I'm gonna just read you some of these poems and you can figure out if this is how they sounded in your head or if this is how they should sound. And I'm just gonna, I had a hard time figuring out what to do without an audience, but I want you to keep in mind that Anderson poem, especially the line about the shade and the shadow. So John Anderson taught one of my teachers, David Rivard, and I just recently made the mistake of agreeing to a reading where he is at too, because he's retiring. And I read a different John Anderson poem, and fast forward, he thought that I stole from this poem when I wrote my Late Summer Ode. And I'll probably end on Late Summer Ode, so just keep that shade part and stealing in mind. Okay, I'll stop talking and I'll read you some poems. And I'm just gonna read what seems appropriate at the moment. This Late Summer Ode, it's definitely fall. This one's called After Rilke. Dude, it is so done. Though summer went on and on. Now the shadows lengthen. Now the wind spins. Gone. Let the berries blacken. Let the fruit overripe, clot, slacken, rot, sober up. Still asking for what? For more? Just 2 more Hippocrene days? Nothing stays. Nothing stays. Too late to cove. Too late to love. Stay up, read late, rove stoned through the now, the fast raving leaves, unraveling, last, alone. Yeah, and I should have that poem pulled up, how it has been translated before. I think it's a bit of a radical translation, but only a little bit. Again, I'm just picking them as I go. Here it is, the poem that pretends it is suffering as much as you. And truly, yea, truly, it does not know what to say to whoever is calling, ringing, writing, to whatever is reaching, making small, dumb sounds. It ignores all, and with what cloud, glorious impunity. Excuse me, it thinks loudly. I'm a harried and haunted man. Right now, someone is sending another photo of where the land scrapes the sky, nay, the sea. how could they be as lost, as in need of, as me? So this came out like officially at the beginning of October, and I've had it for maybe a couple months. And all these poems are very, very, very done. I turned in this manuscript on December 31st, 2020. Yeah. And so since then, you might notice my back wall, I've moved on, or I've moved somewhere. And I've written a small thing, and I'm calling it Death Pamphlet. And these are some of the poems from Death Pamphlet that made it onto the wall. And since I'm improvising, and since Ron, when he first saw them, said, "Are you going to read any of them?" I guess I'll read you one. I might not be able to understand my writing, but we can try. And it's a pamphlet because I've only had a teeny tiny little glimpse of what's to come. But I think it begins with this poem, and it's called My Soul, and the number 1, shout out to Herbert, in parentheses. And it often repeats in my head, and it's up there. I don't know. I don't know if I can do that. So let's not flip all this around. But now my computer wants me to shut down, cancel. Okay, I'll just tell you how this poem goes. My Soul. Cochineal grenade, Oaxacan fly strip, late adolescent, Codex Olena, drawing back, slewest, then sliced, now stubborn plate conch, later turned liquid, latest's darkling, darling, which is pretty weird, but don't you love that, Ron? Cochineal grenade. Ron's my only audience. Hey. All right. Okay. So how are we doing on time, Ron? Are we done? We're doing good. Okay. Since you guys want to learn something, look at my stack of books. Okay. The John Anderson, The Milky Way, Peter Sheldall, Hot, Cold, Heavy, Light. I hope you guys know who Peter Sheldall is. He just died. It's very sad because so few people do you wait for the next thing they're going to write. I always waited for everything he was going to write, even though now I can study everything he already wrote. I recommend this book so highly, and especially on Audible, because he reads all of these reviews himself. So Audible, Peter Sheldall, Hot, Cold, Heavy, Light. I cried at the end. The last piece is called Credo, the Critic as Artist, updating Oscar Wilde. And he just says some great things. But let me just tell you one good thing that he just said that I loved, which I like to think about. And now I won't be able to find it. Yikers. Cut? No, I'm just kidding. There are so many good things in here, but wait, it was in the thing on abstraction. Oh God, I'm not going to find it, even though I prepared an underline. Oh, here it is. This is really, really good. The proof of any art's lasting value is a comprehensive emotional necessity. It's something that a person needed to do and that satisfies corresponding needs in us. I totally believe that. And then it makes me wonder what if my stuff is essential or not. Okay, next we'll talk about Philip Guston, but let's see what in here I thought was an essential poem or just one I really, okay, this is good. This one is called Happy Birthday. Want to have coffee in a romantical way? It was the late 70s, late 80s, late 90s. It was 2020. My eyes were almonds of light. I wore this. I wore there and then the garden Ukrainian, the raspberries red. We boiled everything. My awareness fizzled on lawn chairs, on the big dock, in green track shorts, in white eyelet, off the shoulder, then a dark prom blue silky drape. And still I cackle and crepitate. My mother in the corner of my eye. Or maybe it was just I can't remember. How long ago was your hair? Back then back. A very, very, very good gift of a chiastic ending there. Okay, I guess in that same essential vein, I'm going to read you another poem about, I guess, my mother. And it's called the Latin title De Mortius Nil Nisi Bonum, or something like that. And it translates as don't speak ill of the dead. This is how it played out. Not bad, not good. I no longer love my own mother. She has been dead that long. I have earned this betrayal. It was a long wrong done to me, and I have betrayed others, but not quite this soundly, this steadily, this well. It is quiet. There is no argument in it. The heart knows, the mind simply cannot. It finds new love, new work. It chooses what to watch and when no longer to be tender, careful. I plant my pots, but it could be I pot my plants. My children come and go. They linger still as they outgrow me. This is how it is. Will not be. The poems in this book range from, I believe, spring of 2013, which appears to have been quite a doozy, to probably fall 2020, when the story that's at the end of the book, yes, I consider this a short story, and I should torture you by reading it, but I won't. But you should read it. It's really, really good. And the reason it's in here is that it wrote itself and it gained that inevitable quality that makes me think, okay. All right, so how are we doing on time, Ron? Do I keep going? All right, okay, so now I'm going to talk about Philip Guston. It looks like it's dead old white men in my house. Apologies, and Eileen. But I love Philip Guston too. He's amazing. This is the big collected writings, but there's a new one right now. I paint what I want to see. Again, if we're seriously doing this, we're looking for clues everywhere. This guy seemed to really have a clue. I'll read you a teeny tiny piece because I swear to God, this is how my life is. It doesn't organize until it organizes. But Philip Guston's talking to Clark Coolidge. He used to hang with the poets. A lot of the painters hang with the poets. He was one of them. He also hung out with Philip Roth, not to mention another dead white guy. I was born appreciating middle-aged men's minds, and sorry, that's how it is. Philip Guston. Sure, well, you talk about discontent, ... I think discontent precisely has to do with, and I guess I must put it sort of blatantly, it has to do with the disgust with art. Calvin Coolidge. Yeah. Philip Guston. I think the greatness of Beckett really is that deep and lifelong, profound disgust with art. And paradoxically, that's why he became a great artist. But if you go into this devil's work, and it is a devil's work, there's no insurance you're going to come out. Coolidge. Yeah, right. Philip Guston. And the reason that there's hundreds and thousands of good, safe artists is because there's a threshold, which perhaps some are aware of, others not. And those that are aware of it don't want to pass that threshold. Coolidge. That's why I say it's not that I'm so discontented with my friends who are poets. I'm just discontented. Philip Guston. Yeah, I know what you mean. Coolidge. And therefore, I'm discontented with their lack of discontent. Guston, of course, it could end there, but here's where it really ends. I feel like I'm discontented. What's the matter with you guys? Guston, yeah. Why aren't you discontented? So that's something that's super important to me as well. And it's a perfect segue into this poem, which is called What is Art? I wanted to follow the ideals of the American High Renaissance, but was hampered by my Ukrainian realism and corrupt technique. I had once dated Zelensky. Okay, he had once asked out me. It was a perfect call, but of course, no pressure, so said no. I also once went with Liam Gillick. He came over and said, today, I need to think about what kind of dater I am or still want to be. It was cute. It was contemporary. We were co-equal and concomitant, like Luini and Mabuse. I too have abused my power, but it was only powder. Poor me, always a Madonna or a bowl of fruit, always art informal. I informed on them when they were gone, said, don't know, beats me, but it sounded super smart. In this book, there's also a sequence, not quite a crown. My computer just told me it can't detect my microphone. Are we still good? All right. So these sonnets were a response. I mean, I think I was reading Don Patterson on Shakespeare's sonnets, and these just kind of started coming. And at the live reading, I asked the audience, does anyone know what the first 17 or 18 Shakespearean sonnets are about? And no one that knew the answer answered, but the answer was trying to convince somebody young to procreate. And so my sonnets are a sequence kind of about someone who took up the challenge to procreate. And I'll read you 3 of them just so you can hear that I can do something that sounds like it didn't just get written in 2 minutes. But they got written pretty fast. 1. These now my glass, now that my glass repels, these my fair, my form, and my reflection, my 2 platonic forms. They in spring, myself in autumn morn, morning, my perfection. What triumph, at what cost, did not grasp the what to whom contracted, but seeing plain that I by winning lost, graceful transfer now must be accepted. Having had these my having have now, look at them, drenched in brightest shadow, they light my most ridiculous sorrow. Once beauty had, now my beauties follow. What but this envoy have I left to send? Having rubbed off me, it stuck unlovely then. I'm gonna do a little aside. So I do have a son and a daughter, and in fact, the dedication of this book is to them, and I think it's a really good dedication to the great vowels A and O, which happen to be the first letters of their names. But just a little feedback. Critics say, so my son is he's a biologist, or he's doing biology right now. He's cultivating sea stars in the San Juan Islands. But he's also a poetry lover, and he happens to be one of those people you hate that like can read Tennyson cover to cover and loves Stevens at 21 years old. Now he's 23. But, and my daughter's way cooler than that. She's like me. We're the same person. But the critics, my daughter, her favorite line in this whole book, which I think is just amazing, is from On the Certainty of Brian, where I say to myself, I don't know where it is, but it's something like, do I know what I like even a little? And my son's comment, he's got a Oedipus complex with me in my writing. But his criticism was pretty good, and it took some time to get it out of him. But we were driving, and he said, okay, I have one compliment for you. And he said, you know, doing my studies and being a total nerd, I often think to myself, how is it possible? What's poetry? And when I read your work, I think, a possible solution. So that's what the critics said. Okay, 2 more sonnets, late summer ode, and then we're out of here. Okay, does that sound good? All right. 3, not stiff nor sharp, these my ornamental cuttings. For me, the eye without which nothing, loosen their visages. Gentle go where gentle eye proudly did bewitch. Onlookers, watch you not stand judgmental. That beauty, my beauty not resemble. I still sit. No, see, that's bad. Onlookers, watch you not stand judgmental. That beauty, my beauty not resemble. I still sit in my beflowered mantle. Just my pride, not self, but now parental. Resent not form high spirit created. Delight in loved likeness hair by hair. Notice not what from what separated. Mark human that which human this does share. Fret not, dears, be but unsentimental. What was cut was made to disassemble. So the sonnets don't have any punctuation, and it's true, they make sense, but sometimes you have to know what you're reading before you read it. Okay, and then they deconstruct. You get the idea on those. They go pretty far later on in an opposite direction. But time, it's a wasting, as this book totally talks about. And so other than insisting you follow up on all my recommendations, I'm going to end with the title poem, the eponymous poem. And it's a long one and it's hard to read. So, and remember, you're trying to think about that shade, shadow thing you heard in the original John Anderson poem. Late Summer Ode. Look, our little tree has taken root, presents its fruit, 36 or 7 ombre ways to cherry. Alone and mute in the garden, I garden. Alone in the garden, I crawl like a slow fly over these books. I carry something outsized, something heavy and literary, absurd and third, like an act, like an overburdened ant. Alone in the garden, I Laevsky my catalog unraisonné. I am so Chekhovian. Old sweater over old underwear, shoddy, woolen, unkempt, of Ukrainian face, legs, hair, in the half-kept, tenderly undertended garden. Like this all summer, dishabille at the table in Ruth's chair, undistracted, able, yet lacking action, thus driven to distraction. Like this, I move toward the form of form. Something, and oh, there's our wasp's nest, good for one summer only. All the rest repeating, the sweet pea, revenant, reestablished, shooting its fluorescence up my late vacant trellis, repeating, tender still, and purple. Some buds to flower, some to leaf, from shade to sun and sun to shade, in search of a relief that never comes. In my Vaishnavi sod, sad, alone, just holding on. Aleatory, asinine, like some old world passerine, perched and panicked and common. Common, the visitors come, and to some relief, the visitors go. Altricial, they say, sing sad, their made up songs. Michaela came and told her story. I can't stay in the house now that Grandpa wants to have sex with me, now that he can't recognize me, thinks I'm my dead grandmother who raised me. She's 27 and met her boyfriend online, but she's already done with him. She does not get along with her mother. She says her little sister is the shit on fleek, but complains that her 6th grade graduation eclipsed her master's celebration. Me and Ruby and Lana and I listen. We watch her whip. We watch her nene. Ruby and Lana stare at their more immediate future. This is 2016. Fletcher and his brother arrive. They brought oysters, but right now, right away, they are hungry, hungry. They eat the kale salad, the homemade bread, the peach pie I baked, the caprese I made, wash it down with beer, white wine, rosé, rosé. They are from Juneau, New Zealand, and Maine because Richard's mother gave him away when she was 26 or 7. 30 or 40 years later, he found his family. Now she's dead. I can't understand a lot of what Ed. I can't see the resemblance, but they are some version of the same. Ruby's here. She's 14, here to visit her big-faced, bloated father. Ruby's shorts are very short. Her mother is breaking up with her young hedge fund husband. Oh, wait. No, she's not. Ken was here a time or two. He's thoughtful. He brought halibut. He brought the moose. So then I spent a lot of time with, yes, again, Cal and Elizabeth. I whispered this poem to herself. Precipitate and pragmatical, no. Anemic and ominous, yes. Autonomous, Jonathan visited once. He took an Instagram of the grapefruit's orange squeeze rounds, repeating round the pink cutting board. Vodka, vodka. Although we hung out last summer and I'd wanted to hang out more, I did. It's true he liked you, then he changed his mind and couldn't get it up. He now lives with a pretty young, fat life coach, and I admit, a little bored. Then Carrie came. She's my bishop. I'm her Lowell. She magicked under the tree with a green vine flowering yellow from a red hanging pot round the blue hula hoop. But she's starting to fade. She's in constant chronic pain. She still tries to groom it and tattoo it. Yeah, what are poems and diaries for? Her young husband read them the time before. Last time she was here, loves her and treats her well, despite the unreversed vasectomy she sold him from abroad. Yes, 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 yes. The visitors came and the visitors went. And everyone I asked to leave has left. Back to my soul, my own alone. I proceed by light, by shadow, by mirror, and by picture window. Ow and oh. And if I write letters to my old lovers, I writes to them from over there. Dear J, dear K, dear L, dear M, dear N, exclamation point. Remember the sex in LA? Remember the times in Lake Tahoe and Cuomo? Remember the time in Cassis, in Paris, in Marseille? Over here, dear Ch, dear Ch, dear B, inversely and in a lower key, it's all less clear, like something other than a painting and a painting, a flowering orchard, a kettle of trees under which I self-protest, process, and recede toward an unimpaired despair in a picture bed and on a picture chair, in the garden, deceiving elf, my passions watered, I moderate my sorrow by measure, number, and by weight. From person to idea, and idea to gate. And yeah, that was wood thrush, and that was nightingale, and that was Williams, that was Ashbery, and that was Keats. And that was some fine bullshit. Like a bird, it all repeats, repeats, repeats until the mating's done. Like this, it moved from sun to shade and shade to sun. It all happened. It all happened. It all ripened, gladdened, slackened, saddened. And it all happened the same way nothing happens. All of the sudden, alone in a garden. Thank you very much.
Wow. That was great, Olena. Thank you so much. So everyone, thank you for joining us today. And I hope that you will join us on our next program. And signing off now from Anchorage, Alaska, and Alaska Quarterly Review, with thanks to the Anchorage Museum at Rasmuson Center and the Center for the Narrative and Lyric Arts. Goodbye for now.